Hello, everybody. Again, today we are going to dive back into some nonfiction. My name is Miss Watts, 7th grade ELA at Norway Middle School. So let's jump into some reading for information. We have two main focuses today. Number one is we are going to go over our standard 7.1, which means to cite several pieces of textual evidence to support the analysis of what the text explicitly says. So what it is written verbatim in a text, as well as drawing inferences from the text. So what does that mean for us? We have two key things we're going to do. We are going to identify important details, but we're going to also make inferences about the text. The details we are seeking support the analysis. In other words, it helps us to examine in detail. So here is an example from our text Never Retreat that we read a couple weeks ago, and it's found on page 188 of our HMH textbook. It reads, "Only once have we replaced an energy source so central to our economy and lifestyle. When slave labor was abolished, a change so jarring that its threat brought on war." My question to you is, how does this particular quote support the central idea of, although change can be difficult, we can overcome and thrive doing things in a new way, which is found in Never Retreat? So what is it about that sentence, that quotation, that explicit verbatim quote? How does it support this idea? Although change can be difficult, we can overcome and thrive doing things a new way. I hope you were able to come up with this thought, that our country fought a war over a change, slavery, but we are better now economically and personally than before. So that quote helps support the author's central idea that some people don't want to change and move over to more of a green energy, which is the focus of his text, but that we've fought over change as a system before, and when we did, we were able to overcome and we're actually better. The other skill we want to look at in this week's lesson is 7.5, which just means to analyze the structure of a text. So an author uses a specific structure to organize a text, and that's included in major sections and how those contribute to the whole of the text and the development of ideas. So our two takeaways for this particular standard is we're going to examine in detail the visual format. Are there headings, subheading, bolded words, and what do those things mean? And how do they help us become informed readers? Also, we're going to examine in detail word choice. We've been studying word choice as it relates to literature for quite some time now. Now we're going to be looking at specific word choices and how that can inform the reader of the overall text structure. Is the author trying to show us cause and effect of an idea, problem solution, compare, contrast, description, or a sequence of events, or even chronological order? The details in these two things will support the author's purpose and the central idea of the text. So let's practice again. This also comes from Never Retreat. Consider a power outage's frustrations, then the gradual adaptation the longer it goes on until dining by lantern light feels almost normal. When a job is lost in the family, we cut budgets. Please think they can't go backward, then find out that they can. We ended up succeeding in getting rid of slavery after all. So what details reveal the author's use of cause and effect here? Well, I've highlighted those words in green: then and when and after all. The use of these resulting words, they lead us to determine this text structure. So we looked at these word choices not for tone, but to identify a text structure. So how does the author's use of cause and effect, because he could have used any text structure dependent on what his main idea or central idea was. But how does the use of cause and effect contribute to the central idea of the text? Well, the central idea is that Americans had struggled with going green and their ability to change from old ways of thinking. But in reality, they've made major changes and succeeded, and an everyday life change occurs and they adapt to it. So the use of this cause and effect contributes or helps the central idea. He specifically talks about how the country has changed through ending slavery and how that was a positive change and we've succeeded from that, but also brings in a more personal touch of in a family when someone loses a job, how as a result of that people cut their family budgets. So let's go into some tools of our analysis. Notice and note nonfiction tools, numbers and stats and big questions can really help us to determine the central idea, to cite textual evidence, and to identify and analyze a text structure and its use. So when we think about numbers and stats, these are 3 key points. Numbers and stats help reveal the key points the author is making. They hint at the author's bias or the purpose for writing, and they show comparisons between 2 things. How do we identify numbers and stats? We literally look for numbers in the informational text that we're reading, and we look for stats or facts and figures that deal with percentages and data and graphs. So let's look at our upcoming text, Martian Metropolis. On the left-hand side, we have a portion of the text, and then I want us to locate those numbers and stats. So, but people on Mars will communicate with Earth pretty often. Because Earth and Mars are so far apart, signals are delayed by up to 24 times. Communication will mostly resemble email. So where is the numbers and stats? Let's underline that. So we're looking for actual numbers. If you were able to recognize signals are delayed by up to 24 times, you are right. So now that we identified it, we have to analyze it. We need to ask ourselves this question: why did the author use these numbers? And then we need to say or think to ourselves, how does this statistic about signals being delayed up to 24 times, how does it reveal the author's central idea or hint at the author's bias or purpose of writing? And or does it show comparisons between 2 things? So this question helps us determine the author's purpose of using this particular data. So this is my analysis. That the number and stat here, signals are delayed by up to 24 times, is showing us that there's a signal between Earth and Mars, and it's delayed 24 times. I said 24 minutes. I'm so sorry. That should say times. Delayed by 24 times. That informs me that the author's bias or her belief is that communication will happen often between Earth and Mars. That is explicitly stated right here, that Mars will communicate with Earth pretty often. But why do we need to know about the delay? Because it shows that communication will be a little bit different because of the distance between Mars and Earth. And again, that should say 24 times it will be delayed, not minutes. So here's another tool, big questions. Big questions is not always found by looking in a text for a question mark. Rather, these questions come from within. So as we begin to read and we start to find these facts, we're going to start saying or thinking or looking for things that surprise us, which then poses a question internally as the reader. We begin to say, why would the author include this fact? This is really surprising to me. And when we ask that question, It guides us to a deeper understanding of the text. So let's look at an example from Martian Metropolis. On Mars, cosmic radiation is much higher than it is on Earth. This can cause serious damage to DNA, which is really important when we're thinking about life on Mars. So this would increase the risk of cancer. The danger decreases if you burrow 16 feet or 5 meters under the surface of the red planet. The soil overhead would provide about the same amount of protection as Earth's atmosphere. Now, I see some numbers and stats here. I see that the danger decreases if you burrow 16 feet or 5 meters under the surface of the red planet. What those numbers and stats tell me is how far someone would have to be would have to dig in order to be at a lesser risk for cancer. But that makes me really wonder, why would the author want to tell us this fact if it could be dangerous? Most people would not want to go somewhere knowing that there would be an increase in possible cancer prognosis. So what sentence or idea is guiding me to a deeper understanding? And what fact or information is surprising to me? I found that this number and stat actually happens to be what is surprising to me. So what is so surprising about the danger decreases if you burrow 16 feet, 5 meters under the surface of the red planet? I predict that the author included this information to show that even though cosmic radiation is dangerous, there would be a way to protect settlers. Although we have not read the text yet, we can, I'll go ahead and inform you that this particular text is in favor of having life human life exist on the planet Mars. My prediction aligns with the author's view that humans should inhabit Mars. Many people would not want to go somewhere, as we mentioned earlier, knowing that they would have an increased cause and effect is a form of a text structure. Here are some clue words to help us identify cause and effect, such as because, since, so, as a result, due to, therefore, thus, consequently, cause, and effect. These are not the only clue words, but they are a great list. You might want to jot those down. Definitely be cognizant of those as you read Martian Metropolis. As a reminder, you guys have been doing headings and subheadings and illustrations and graphs for a very long time. This is just a quick review. That subheadings are what I've pointed to here with the arrows, and their purpose is to highlight or to bring to the reader's attention what the text below will be about. So if since this says women's work, we can infer that in this section, it would explain to us the female lion's job or responsibility and their work. And then Lions Play School, we could infer this would be about the cubs and what they do. So get ready to collect clues on these three things: a text structure, big questions, and numbers and stats. And know that all three of those help support an author's central idea and an author's purpose, even though I spelled author wrong. That's okay. Remember, when we're citing textual evidence, we want to find evidence that supports the analysis of the question, not just any sentence that is found in a text. It must have a specific function in that it is supporting or contributing to the actual text and it is connected to the question you're trying to answer. Have a great time reading Martian Metropolis.